Hello, Pollination Project grantees. This is our first monthly webinar for grantees of 2018. And my name is Nicole, and I'm very excited for this particular topic as well as this particular panel. We have a panel of fellow TPP grantees. And our topic is exploring creative ways to fund your project. And these three, I think, are the most some of the most creative in thought and mindset, as well as in action around how to kind of keep the doors open in their organization. We are going to get started shortly. We're going to wait a little while longer for attendees to join. If you just joined us, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in the chat room and put where you're calling in from. I think we've got a few people. We have actually quite a few people on the telephone. I see Antonio and Kennedy and Ujdaya. And I think if anyone has a question during our panel, to write that in the chat, or if you have a technical issue, to write that in the chat, and we will answer those questions. But please do introduce yourself, have that chat conversation. If you're on the phone, you will not be able to ask your question as an attendee. However, we will be able to ask questions later on in our Facebook group. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panel. First off, we have Chris McGivory of Give More Hugs, who just celebrated his 5-year anniversary of the organization just this past week. Next, we have David Omundi. And David, I think you changed the Akili Library to the Riley Orton Foundation. So I put a little picture of you of both up there. And then Michelle Carrera of Chili's on Wheels. And she's currently in Puerto Rico with the chapter there. So with that, we will get started. So the three of you, I would love for you to even though I said your organization name, I would love for you to just introduce yourself, introduce your organization, like your quick elevator pitch, and when you were funded by the Pollination Project, and any other kind of general information about what you do. Welcome.
So I guess I can jump in, and I'll start off real quick. Chris here with Give More Hugs, and HUG stands for Helping Unite Giving Souls. We unite communities to help students in need. And how do we do that? We train students to be leaders, to develop their leadership skills with us while implementing programs, education and literacy-based programs to help students in underserved areas. And so 5 years, we just celebrate our 5th birthday. And so what other questions do I need to answer, Nicole?
Where you're located in the world?
I am in Temple, Texas right now.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll move along to Michelle or David.
All right, I can go. My name is Michelle, and I'm from Chili's on Wheels, and we provide vegan meals to people that are in need of food. We provide food for people that are homeless, people that are food insecure, and just the community at large. And we really have several different programs to foster a community and build community around free vegan food. We have chapters in a couple of cities, including Puerto Rico, where I'm at right now, and I'm opening up a community center, a vegan community center over here, since staying here for the time being. But originally from New York was our first chapter, and it's just been spreading.
Wonderful. Thank you. And David, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm David Omondi from Kisumu, Kenya. And my project is Riley Orton Foundation, which started as a Akili Library, which was an after-school study center in the slum. Over the years, we've been able to expand and grow into a boarding school. And our goal is to eliminate all barriers that prevent girls from reaching their full potential. So to this end, we provide free education to underprivileged girls in Kisumu, Kenya. And we provide them with school uniforms, food, and they stay in a boarding school where we provide them with quality teachers and teach them leadership skills, reproductive health, and all that it takes to grow them into the next generation of women leaders in our country. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love how you've expanded and moved. So with that, we have a few new attendees, and if you're just joining us, please use the chat feature to introduce yourself and ask any questions you have along the way as you're listening, and we'll make sure to ask them in our question and answer segment at the end of the call. And as you know, all of these are always recorded, so we will be able to see the recording as well as posting it on our Facebook groups where we're able to comment and ask questions of each other. So we'll move on to our question and answer panel. And Michelle, David, and Chris, feel free to just kind of popcorn in or like just jump in. And we'll figure it out if you all jump at once or no one jumps at all to some of these questions. It's a loose conversation amongst our community of grantees. So I think we can have some fun with it. With that, our first question is more about when you first started. What was fundraising like? How did it go when your organization was just getting started in the first year?
Hello, I think I'll jump in.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, so for us it was really difficult, and this is because we are based in Kenya and we did not have any connection out there, and most of the funding for our work or community-based organizations come mostly from the US or Europe and so on. So it was really difficult trying to fundraise without advocates who could really stand in for us or vouch for us. And also when it came to fundraising through grant writing, it was difficult because most of the time we were asked about the 501c3 status that we have no idea what it was at that time. So we didn't succeed in the beginning. And we also made some mistakes, like trying to create a personal Facebook page and asking people for money. It was difficult asking people for money to give to the organization. And as we tried to develop a following on Facebook, we added almost everyone. We just kept adding anyone that we could find there, and the next thing was asking them for funds. So we faced a lot of rejections, both in terms of grant writing and general fundraising, crowdfunding. And what worked for us is that we decided to change how we package ourselves, and we decided to create an official Facebook page for the organization. And we became intentional about who we added to our network. Like we look at third-party websites like Compassion International or these other organizations that support girls. And this ensured that the people that we added to our network were people we share common interests with, like there were people interested in development work both in Africa and elsewhere. And with time, we started growing a base of like-minded people. And we decided to build relationships too. Like we'll talk to people, we'll look at their profiles and ask questions about families. We'll ask them about their work. If they were a teacher, for example, we'll ask about how they were doing at school, how we could connect our classes to theirs and start a pen pals program and exchange letters through snail mail and so on. By developing relationships with our network and with the people we are adding to our Facebook page, we were able to build authentic relationships with them. And over time, they started asking like, how can I come and volunteer? How can I help you? And we started growing advocates now, people who will go out there and volunteer.
I think we lost David. Are you there?
Yeah.
Are you there, David?
Yes, thanks.
Oh, thank you. I think we lost the last little bit of what you said, but it's okay. I'm wondering how long does when you're building relationships, what's the time between when you first start and when you mentioned that people asked, like, how can I come and volunteer and how can I support you? Is there an average time frame that you see in that space?
At first, when we started, if it depended on who we added or who we were talking to. If you are talking to someone that we don't share anything in common, that we just added randomly, then it will take even 1 year. But for people who are already involved in charitable work in Africa and beyond, it could even take 3 weeks. Like I remember there's one instance where I started talking to a teacher from Arizona, and she had wanted to go to Uganda. When I started talking to her, it only took me around 2 months for her to change her mind and say that I want to come to Kenya. And she was our first volunteer that ever came to Achilles School.
Wow.
So I think it depended because already in her mind, she was thinking of volunteer work. She was thinking about Africa.
Right.
It's different to someone who was not even thinking about that, and then you add them and start talking. It will take longer.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Chris and Michelle, I would love to hear how fundraising went when you first started, but before we do that, I want to know if either of you have like a relationship and relationship strategy, and if you see like the time frame. I think I get a lot of questions of how long it takes, how long should I be in relationship with folks. So I'd love to just quickly touch on that and then jump into each of your projects.
Michelle, did you want to go?
Sure. Well, we don't actually have this type of, we don't yet seek out these kind of relationships. Instead, we let them come to us. And so people reach out to us all the time about volunteering and about how to further help. I think that just by sharing my story, and the story of the organization is how we're able to, to get people to reach out to us. When I started Chili's on Wheels, it wasn't meant to be, an organization. I started because I was wanting to be with my son, handing out meals. So everything has happened organically, and there was no strategic, plan to begin this as an organization. So once we decided, once we said, well, I can't continue funding this myself. We have to make this into an organization so that we can, get other people to help us fund. then we just did I tapped into all my social capital. I tapped into every person that I know and every email that I've ever received in my life. 34 years, 35 years of my life, all the emails. I just reached out to everyone that I knew and said, hey, I'm doing a crowdfunding. I want to make this into a nonprofit. You've already seen what I've done with it because I had already started it without any funding, outside funding. You've already seen what I've done. Help me out to make this into something bigger. And so that's how I started it with a crowd fund.
Got it. Thank you. Chris, jump in.
So I don't have a specific timeline for building relationships and when asking for donations. But I think it's just really important for all of us to really get to know the people that we connect with and then see what they can offer to our organizations. And so I try my best to really get to know our volunteers or people that show interest in the work that we're doing. And then from there, I may ask, hey, we have this project coming up. Would you consider making a donation, or would you consider connecting me with someone? And if they can't make a donation, they may say something that they could offer, whether it's books or resources, an in-kind donation. And so I don't have I've heard that there's a method to asking for funding in a sense, and I'm still organically figuring that out. But for me, it's just connecting with them and figuring out how they can help, whether it's volunteering or financially or an in-kind donation.
Great.
Thank you. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I really liked that, Chris, what you were just saying, and I think that that's really important is knowing that funding is, the money part of funding, is just a tiny fraction. We really we serve so many meals, thousands of meals, and we really make a fraction of the money of what other feeding organizations make. And it's because we really concentrate on in-kind donations. We concentrate on what people can give us in terms of their volunteer work. We don't pay anyone to run our website. We have a volunteer who does that. We don't pay anyone to do our design cards. We have volunteers who do that. So it's really putting less, I think the key is putting less emphasis on what money can give you and trying to find, the actual, what it is that you need instead of the money so that you can do that.
Thank you. I was going to have us jump into that type of a conversation in a bit, but I love it. And I had a feeling it would go that way. What I really enjoy, though, is because we've got this examples from 3 different places in the world. What I really see is there's a spectrum of fundraising. There's many different strategies, and I think knowing where you are and where your audience is. One thing that I really appreciated that David shared is, instead of just going for it all, we found success when we really looked at who has things in common with us, so I appreciate the spectrum that there's many ways to do this. And we invited the 3 of you on this call because you're also very creative in this space. You have creative mindsets, as you just mentioned, Michelle, of what you believe the importance of money is and that such. So I want to jump to the question of, as you've progressed in your organization, over the time period of your organization, what has been the most creative thing you've done to raise money, but also, I think let's add in just raise support for what you're doing?
So when I first started Give More Hugs, it was in Dominica. My wife and I, we lived in Dominica, and I volunteered at schools while working on the island, and I just decided, hey, I want to help out, these children in schools. And so every time we go home and visit our families in Texas, we would bring back school supplies, basic supplies, flip-flops, and donate, what we could. And it was just a little at a time. And then I realized, hey, I wanted to start something where we could unite the community to continue this kind of support, not only in Dominica, but in Texas or in other regions of the U.S. And so I started off with a garage sale in Dominica. Instead of taking things back with us to the States, we sold all of our belongings basically that we didn't need to take with us, and had a startup fund in a sense to create Give More Hugs. And from our time on the island, I built relationships with business owners, and so I've done an online auction, and so where business owners have donated, whether it's like a massage certificate or a spa certificate or a hotel stay, all I did was just say, this is what I do, or this is what the organization does, and I'd love for you guys to support so we can continue it. And most of the folks said yes. And so from there, I was able to kind of create an online auction where we generated some funding. So that's one creative way that we've been able to do fundraising.
A garage sale and an auction. Love it.
Two.
Yeah, that's great. And you want to, Michelle or David, you want to chime in?
I think the most that we've ever fundraised or something was I just reached out to a friend of ours who's a video person who does videos for a living. She's a video producer, and we just asked her, can you make, we just flat out asked. I think that at first we have that fear of asking for things, and as time goes on, you kind of stop, it just kind of goes away. And so we just asked, flat out said, hey, I know that this is what you do for a living, but, this would help so many people. And so she made a video of our program, and that got shared around a lot through social media. And again, social media is our main source of how we get funds. And so that, I want to say that would be the most that we were able to do that wasn't really asking for money per se.
Right. So
and of course, yeah, and going on the V Team tour, which was, talk about creative, living on a van. Going around the country living in a van.
Yeah, tell our audience a little bit more about what the intent about the V Team tour.
So the V Team tour was a project. I got rid of all my possessions, and I put solar panels on an old van, installed a kitchen in a van, and took my son out across the country, giving out meals to people that needed it, and creating chapters of our organization. And so we made a lot of connections in all these different communities around the east coast of the country. We never actually made it west, but and so I think that was pretty creative, just going around and talk about support. We gathered a lot of support from different communities.
Yeah. So it's like you kind of took it to them, step beyond the social media, that you can make it real and live for them through that. Wonderful. David, do you have anything to add? Or if not, that's okay.
I'm not sure if this is creative, but we've made a considerable success in grant writing and raising funds through grants. And one of the things we do is that once we see the funding opportunity announcement, we always try to go and see the history of the funding organization, like how many grants do they give in a year. For example, if they give $15,000 to two different organizations every year, we apply for $7,000, knowing that most of these organizations are trying to make a bigger impact or reach more people. And we also know that most organizations applying will go for the entire 15,000. And our goal is usually to just get away of getting funded with this organization and then working on a relationship to get repeat fundings over the years. So once we apply for 7,000, which is almost half, or which is half of what they are giving, we know that at least there's one extra organization that will also need the 7,000, and of course the one that will be given the 15,000. So this has really worked for us. And once we get the funding, we now focus on sending them reports. Where they ask for one report per quarter, we give two, or we give one report and send like 3 different updates. And this has led to organizations inviting us to apply for funding for a second time. For example, there's this one organization called Sunflower Foundation in Australia that gave us $3,000. When they were applying, people were getting 5,000. We went for 3,000 and we received that. After sending more reports than they required, they were really impressed and told us that they enjoyed working with us and reading the positive things that the impact the grant was making. And last year they invited us to apply for $10,000, which they gave. And we continue sending these reports. And this year they have invited us to apply for $50,000 with them. And we are in the process of working with them to ensure that we get that grant with their partners. So that's the strategy we use. And finally, it's really difficult to be visible as a grassroots organization here in Africa, because we hear that there are these big organizations that pay Google a lot of money to be featured out there. When people look for volunteer opportunities, they don't find small organizations like Achilles School or Rally Autumn Foundation. So what we did was to apply for Google ad grants that gives us in-kind advertisements, and we bought some keywords like volunteer in Kenya, support girls education, and so on. And with this, now we've seen a stream of volunteers coming to us. People are now finding us instead of us going out there to find them. Yeah.
Wow. That's I love the focus on relationship, and before they ask, you kind of just are ready to give. Giving more than one, maybe a formal report, but just keeping the story going. I think it's a really wonderful, tangible thing that people can do. And then the other thing I heard as well was that, instead of just seeking money from Google, you actually sought after the resource that they could give, which is the AdWords. And now people come to you based off of that. So I love all three of you are kind of saying just that it's not, and Michelle mentioned this earlier, it's not just money, it's really opening yourself up to support and in-kind donations, and kind of if someone says maybe no, that you're able to still stay in conversation with them, because it might just be a no right now, and it's still an in to be connected with them. So thank you. That was a lot of really good examples. I know of several grantees that I know will find that really helpful. My next question, and we probably have time for kind of one, maybe two more of these questions before we open it up to our attendees. And I'm just going to remind our attendees, our grantees, if you have any questions, please put them in our chat box, and we will ask them towards the end of the call in 15 minutes or so. And I see a couple of people that have joined us since we started. Kanita, and I think some people are having some internet issues because their names are cutting in and out. But welcome if you just recently joined us. So next question. What advice would you give yourself now, how do I want to say this? Like, what have you learned since you started? But also, it's more along the lines of like, what advice would you give yourself that was just starting out, based on what you know now?
Don't be afraid to ask. I think when Michelle mentioned this, I was also afraid to ask in the beginning, and I wasn't sure if someone was going to say yes or no. I think it's just really important to just continue to ask and build those relationships with the people that you're working with, and you'll get to the point where you feel comfortable. I still get nervous asking, but as you build relationships, find those people that continue to come back and support you, and continue to share stories like David was mentioning, and so that they will want to continue to help support not only one time, but hopefully many times while you're implementing your project. So that's what I would share to myself.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I think that I would do something. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
Okay, thanks. I think for me, we almost got lost into this common narrative of people posting very bad photos of children starving in Africa, in Kenya, and different parts of the world, so as to evoke pity and encourage people to give. So for some time, we tried this, and it didn't work. And I think what I learned from that is that people want to be part of something that is successful. They want to contribute to the difference that you are making. And I think things changed for us when we started sharing the impact of the work that we were doing, of children like learning in classrooms, even if they did not have desks, but people seeing that they were actually learning. And children playing like through our sports program, and connecting that to our supporters out there. We also had kids in similar ages, like they learned that kids are kids. They can relate to them. A teacher can see that she can contribute towards teaching these kids when they come to volunteer. So I think it was really important for us to change how we tell our story and show the difference that we were making, and not just try to beg or be beggars and see people how desperate we were for the money. And over time, people are now joining our work because they want to be part of the difference that we are making, and not the pity. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think we need to. It's a good story, yeah, and I think a lot of people need to hear that. One of the common threads I hear in fundraising is that the funder wants one thing when your mission does something else, and I always want to lift up stories like yours, David, of when you kind of really root into your values and what you do well, and you tell that story, it will your support will always find a way to you. So thank you for sharing that. Michelle, do you want to add anything?
I loved it. I loved what David just said. And I think, when we were doing food relief here in Puerto Rico right after the hurricane, a lot of people would be curious about the pictures of destruction and, but that was flooding the news already. So we made a conscious decision of focusing on, the people that were happy, the people that were receiving the supplies, the people that were being impacted instead of that destruction. I think it's really interesting, and I'm so glad you said that, David, because we really do have to refocus, I think our efforts into the positive that our work is doing, instead of focusing on the negative that we're trying to fix. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. That was really powerful. I want to sit for a minute with all of that.
It also makes me think of the work in Dominica after Hurricane Maria, and so we didn't want to share too much, and so and I think focusing on the good and what we're doing and how all the beautiful things that are happening because of the work that we're all doing, because that's what the world needs.
Yeah. And I think Michelle just touched on something too. It's not, I think sometimes there's a fear that by just sharing the good that you're maybe ignoring the actual problem. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's a way to say that there is something that's not working in my community, and this is the good that or this is what we're attempting to do good. And there's good coming from that. There's a balance there, I think, to tell that story. And maybe that story comes, that deeper story of why you're doing your work comes when you've got deep relationships with folks. I wonder. Okay, we have time for one more question before I jump into our panel, our grantee chat room. Have you ever been told no, or maybe actually a better question? What was it like the first time someone said, no, I can't help you? How did that go for you?
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I went to someone that was really close to me in the beginning, and I shared this idea of, give more hugs, and this is what I would do. And I wrote up I just wrote up my ideas and tried to I created my first draft of the business plan, I guess, if you can say. And I shared it with this person, and they were like, this doesn't make sense. And they were like, I don't know. And then, and so I kind of had this oh my gosh, someone close to me doesn't want to help me out. And okay, well, it's okay. I'm going to do this. I'm going to rework it where it makes sense. And today, this person donates on a monthly basis. And so it's pretty, that's what I was laughing at, where the person said no at first. And then now this person donates on a monthly basis and has help with volunteer activities and gets our work. And so, yeah.
I can only imagine what that no felt like when you first got it.
And it was someone so close to me, and I'm like, you love me, don't you? Don't you want to help out? And stuff.
Well, for me, it's something is really interesting. I really appreciate those no's. It was mostly the big, we start reaching out to the bean companies and all these places for just in-kind donations of food, and we were just following a more of a tradition in grants. We were following a more traditional nonprofit kind of model, and those no's were obviously devastating. But it made me try to then be more creative and value then put this other intense value into people's time, into people's into other things that are not money. So those no's have actually shaped what the organization is, and have allowed me to be so creative and expand even my vision of the world, because it's not this corporate nonprofit, type. It's this messy, real life, let's go out there and help people. Everyone using your skills and your talents in your resources. And so I think all those no's I think it was beautiful. I appreciate them so much, even though they stung a lot in the beginning,
Wow, great stories. David, you've sort of already talked about how you've changed based off of your no's, but do you have any specific examples or stories to add about a particular no that didn't feel good?
Yeah, the first no found when we are just starting, and we were really positive about getting a new partner and support for the school. But when these people came to visit our work, they said no because we were not offering inclusive education. And they said that for them to support our work, then we must have disabled students at our school. And we thought that, like our vision, we care about the disabled people in the community, but our vision was not to support them. And these guys wanted us to like conform to what they thought was good for the community in terms of inclusive education. So it was really painful seeing how disparate we were, and really hoping that we could forge that partnership with this organization. It's a big one. So that was painful. And with grants, I think you just have to develop a thick skin. I've seen so many rejections, and I've taken them positively in the sense that some of those grants are really rigorous. They require you to take a lot of your time to write the proposals. But we always see that even if they say no, it makes the next grant application easier, because at least we have the write-up and we have all the necessary things to simply adapt and apply to the next grant, and hopefully we get it.
Yeah. Thank you to all of you. We're gonna move. Thank you. These are just solid gold stories that I think all grantees, whichever way they choose to fundraise and seek support with in-kind donations or volunteer time, will benefit from hearing. So before we kind of jump into the next segment of questions from our attendees, I just want to really thank you guys for sharing all the ups and downs and all the creative ways, and really, I think that the big thing I'm taking away though too is you find a way. It's that important to you, and so you find a way, and you just keep going even in the face of adversity. And I think more so too, there's a mindset that it's not necessarily adversity, that adversity can teach you something. So thank you. And now we'll move on to attendees. If you have a question, I think I see Jacqueline's on here, Kanita, Kennedy, Maladi, Mujida. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, feel free to type it in the chat. And we'll give them a second. While we do that, while we wait to see if anyone has an actual specific question, I wonder if Michelle, Chris, or David, if you have a question for each other, that might be kind of cool to ask each other. Any questions you might have? Okay, we have
David, I guess.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I was going to ask David how, how much of a support do you have within, Kenya, within your, because you said a lot of it comes from outside of it. I wanted to see, like, do you get a lot of local volunteers, and do you have a lot of local support?
So at first, we were not getting any local volunteers, and I think part of it was due to visibility, because most of the graduates here in the universities, in the local universities, go online to look for volunteer opportunities, and they don't find us there. But since we got the Google grant, we've received over 10 applications locally, and of young people who are interested in working with us. So we are going to involve them. Then we've also partnered with one of the big telecommunication companies here, Safaricom Foundation, that supported our computer lab with over 10 computers. And the parents of the girls that come to Akili School, they all contribute in-kind donations in terms of food, like rice, green grams, that go a long way in supporting the girls when they are at school. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Kanita. which social media platforms do you use to promote your organization and solicit donors or volunteers?
Facebook definitely for us has been crucial. And we started using Instagram too, and we get a couple of hits from Instagram, especially if like a big Instagrammer will repost us or will, feature us or something. But Facebook is, to us, has been crucial. We wouldn't be, we probably wouldn't be here were it not for Facebook.
And I want to follow up with that, Michelle, because I think David mentioned earlier one of the things that switched for him is when they actually had a Facebook page for the organization. Do you find more support from your personal page or your organization page, or a mixture of both?
Right now it's a mixture of both. At first it was mostly mine because, I was the major push, but we've gotten outside. It's gotten to the point where it's not just Michelle's org, or it's not just Michelle's presence. Now there's organizers in other cities, and there's more of a push somewhere. So it does have its own following, people that might not even necessarily know who I am, but who know the organization. But it definitely starts, I think, with the one person that's pushing it, making it personal. And so now that I'm in Puerto Rico trying to set up this chapter, I'm looking and going backwards. So I'm starting from scratch, starting the community from scratch, the feeling of community, all of it, the contacts within the companies and restaurants and supermarkets here. So everything is, so I'm looking back a lot and kind of replicating those successes. And so pushing it more on my personal page so as to kind of get that momentum going over to it, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Chris or David, want to chime in?
For us, Facebook has...
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. So for us, Facebook has really worked well, and it's both the official Riley Orton Foundation page and our personal pages, because once the supporters like the foundation page, we add them as friends too, as personal friends too, and keep the conversation going. It's been difficult for us to manage other platforms, so we just decided to focus on Facebook and do it well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I have to agree with both of them. One of the things that I've seen some success in Facebook is groups, and so I'm a part of another organization that has a community support aspect to a give back aspect to it. And so I pitched my organization to the leaders of that organization, said, hey, can we do a project with Give More Hugs? And then they said, yes, we love what you're doing. And then they promoted a fundraiser within their group page. And so I would encourage grantees to maybe look at local organizations that have group pages, and Rotary clubs, and or organizations like Altrusa that might have a Facebook group, and connect with them, via email first, but then get connected with them in the group and being able to share a potential fundraiser with them that way. So, yeah.
Thank you. I know for me, I do a lot. And one of the organizations I'm connected with, it works a lot with young adults, and Instagram has been way more fruitful than Facebook has normally. And kind of usually I hear Facebook is the best way, and yet I think it also depends on who might be interested in supporting you. And if it's a younger demographic, Instagram seems to have a little bit more pool in that space. We have 2 more questions. Jacqueline is asking, what's been your greatest success from a fundraising perspective, and why?
mine would be just taking risk and asking. I remember one time about a year and a half ago, I was at the mall with my son, and I was strolling around, and I was at the Microsoft store, and I just asked, "Hey, is someone in charge of corporate social responsibility here? I'd love to just share some great things that my nonprofit's doing." And what happened there has turned into a pretty awesome success story where they've done volunteer work with us, and every volunteer hour that they do with us, since we're registered with Microsoft as a give back organization, we get funding from every hour they volunteer. And so I recently had the opportunity to meet with their corporate social responsibility team in the Central Plains region of, I guess it's Texas and a few states, to share the work that we're doing and ask them to do book drives and participate in upcoming activities. And so I'm still learning, and figuring out how to best work with Microsoft, but they keep coming back to support us through volunteers. So hopefully that will turn into, other funding opportunities in the future.
Wow. And you were just at the mall. You were hanging out at the mall with your kids.
Yeah.
Oh, great. And didn't they just host your party, your 5-year anniversary party?
Yes, they did. I didn't have, it was so nice. They're like, just show up, we'll have it decorated, or you don't have to worry about anything. And I think all of us can attest to this, is that as founders, we're always like, we need to get this together. We need to set this up. We're wearing many hats. And so it's so nice to be able to just show up, and they had everything basically taken care of. And so from strolling my son to now, to get their support and being able to just do volunteer work with them, I think we just need to take risk and ask companies that might want to support. So,
right. Thank you. I'm gonna, because we only have 5 minutes left, I'm gonna jump to our last question, and maybe David or Michelle could take this one. This one comes from Kennedy. What has made you stand out in the different work that you are doing in your community? So I guess maybe from other organizations, what do you think makes you stand out?
I think that for Chilies on Wheels, at least, there's very few people doing vegan food for people that are low income or people that are struggling, and so there's just the concept itself is, it stands out because it's getting a crossover of communities involved in aspects that they wouldn't necessarily be involved in. Vegans usually concern themselves with animals, and so doing human work is already makes you stand out. And then within that, I would say that it's the transparency of our story on our life and our life being the organization, and so that transparency and that storytelling of successes and failures, and I'm not ashamed of putting our big failures up front and center, and putting our vulnerabilities front and center, so as to gather that community support. I think people always want to help, and you have to make yourself vulnerable so that people can help. And so that's what makes me kind of stand out.
That last part, helping people find ways that trusting that people want to help, and helping them find the ways to do that is a really interesting thing to think about. Let's move into kind of final thoughts and words. And David, I'll have you go first. Just final thoughts. What would you tell a new grantee, or any advice you have for our 2,500 plus grantees around the world about this topic?
I think in this work, one of the most important things that we really need to do, or any grantee out there who is at the early stages needs to do, is to ensure that they build relationships with the people who will potentially help them, Most of the time we see people and we think money, but we should look beyond money. I would encourage everyone to look beyond money because someone might not be able to help you with money, but if you build a relationship with them, you'll forever stay in their minds. When they meet over dinner tables, when they talk to their coworkers and families and friends, they will always be thinking about you, and they'll be sharing stories about your work. And the people they talk to about your work are the ones that could help you beyond what you could have even imagined. And this has happened a lot for us. People who just came, people we just got into contact with as casual friends. A few months, a year down the line, I just get emails of people asking how they can help. I was recently in Rwanda for a conference, and a volunteer who came here like 2 years ago happened to have shared about my work. And I just found someone inviting me to attend a girls' summit that I didn't even know about just because they shared. And now we are building a network together. So relationships, build them, and you never know. Yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you. David or Michelle, real quick final words. Or Michelle, I know you had to jump off, so if you left it.
Yeah, I have to jump off, and my advice would always be just do what it is that you do. Do your project, follow it up. The right people will come. Some people will say no, some people will say yes. But if you just keep going towards it, you'll be successful regardless. That's it. Thank you guys for having me.
Mm-hmm. Bye, Michelle.
Chris, Chris, you get the final word.
I don't want the final word.
Well, okay, I'll have the very, very final word.
I think what Michelle said, ditto to her. We have so many great people that are doing great work within our grantee community. And so I think one thing that I would like everyone to leave with is just ask for help. Ask, if you need help with fundraising, ask someone that might, be able to share some ideas, set up a meeting, 15 minutes, 20-minute meeting with someone, and they can help guide you. You're not alone in this. We're a grantee family. We support each other. And I love what we're all doing and what we're all creating. And so don't be afraid to ask for in-kind or financial support, and also ask for advice and support from the grantee family.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. My final word actually is actually one more question. First is a thank you. I really appreciate your time. David, I know it's late at night for you, and it's in the middle of your day, Chris, and it was in the middle of Michelle's day in Puerto Rico. So thank you all for your time and putting this together and just showing up to support the grantee community and yourselves. And I would love to know how we can support you and your work. Is there anything that you can think of that we can support you with?
So one thing right now is we have our application open for our ambassadors. And so we train and mentor middle school, high school, and college students to develop their leadership while implementing our Bookshare backpack program in their community. And so we're on the search for bright and passionate students in middle school, high school, or college. And so if you know of anyone that's interested in participating in our program, our ambassador program, tell them to go to givemorehugs.org and let them know to apply before May 31st.
Wonderful. David, do you have any way we can support you?
So for me, I think I would like to thank you for the Nonprofit Leadership Lab subscription that I'm part of. It has really helped me, and I'm sharing the resources with some of my staff members. And I think I will just kindly ask that you keep the membership going for me, because recently I've not been able to log in. Yeah.
Oh, you have it. Okay, I'll fix that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know for Michelle, right now she's looking for some volunteers in her coming as in Puerto Rico. So you can hop on a plane in the next week or two. And that sort of thing. So, with that, we are done. Our next webinar will be in about a month, and it will include a staff insight panel from the Pollination Project, and some of the stories that come from the staffing perspective. And we've got a pretty cool panel of staff that's all around the world, and really excited for that. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to anybody that's viewing this as a recording. This month we'll also have a transcript available for those of you that have a hard time with video and audio. And we'll see you in the Facebook group and connect over email if you need anything as well. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang up. Thanks again.
Hey, Nicole, good job.
Thanks. That was fun.
That was good. So I love it. I was looking at Kanita Brown and Jacqueline Way, and I love what they're doing. I knew Jacqueline. And then Kanita's in Houston. I'm going to be in Houston next week.
Oh, good. Yeah, connect.
I've already done that.
Of course you did.
Dave. And then when I guess you had asked us like a question for David, and I was talking and my mic was on mute. And so,
no.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, David, do you have like folks in the U.S. that are supporting what you're doing?
Yeah, now like we've been able to get volunteers, and when they go back, they always inform their friends who are now helping.
That's awesome.
Our biggest supporters are from California. It's called Mama Hope. Don't know if you've heard about it.
Yeah.
So they've been sending us volunteers, and the volunteers that they sent have to raise $20,000 for projects here. So they've been our greatest supporters. Yeah.
Congrats.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing. I love what you've started and how you've been able to get people to rally behind what you're doing. So keep it up.
Absolutely. To both of you, and thank you again. And well, I know that there will be some questions on our Facebook group, so I'll tag you guys when we upload the video.
Sure. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Bye.